Hello and good evening, everyone. So this Diwali is definitely giving us a lot many gifts. First, we won the match against Pakistan in the Melbourne, and we all have seen how Virat Kohli has given his best shot in the match and has scored 82 runs. Secondly, definitely we know that Rishi Sunak has become the Prime Minister of UK. So definitely all these things happening in just 1 week is giving us a big boost, and we all have celebrated this Diwali with full of joy. Good evening, everyone. This is Nitika, and today, apart from the Virat Kohli's tremendous performance in the cricket match, I'm going to discuss another topic, that is Rishi Sunak becoming the Prime Minister of UK. We all know, I hope मुझे बार बार बताने की जरूरत नहीं है, I'm sure that this is the same Britain which ruled us for over 100 years, and now of course first Hindu Prime Minister becoming the head of that particular country where once which once has ruled us. We all know that UK is the king of the colonial powers, and for a very long period of time एक एंटी रेसिज्म जो है, एक जो रेसिज्म है, that has been propagated and even spread out in the entire world by these powers. And definitely, one after other, when we see that the Asians or the people from Indian origin, from the Indian descendant, growing in the European or in the Western countries, we definitely feel elated to hear such news. Of course, बहुत सारे लोग ये सोच रहे हैं कि how is it so important, and why is it so important? Why are we celebrating? He's not an Indian, he is a Britisher, he is born and brought up in Britain, but why are we celebrating? See, why we are celebrating and why we are happy is because this is a victory of a semi-colonial or even a colonial nation coming forward, growing and becoming and sitting atop in a state which had once remained the king of all these colonies. So let's get started with who is Rishi Sunak and how has he reached to this particular position. So as we all know that he is a member of Conservative Party, and Conservative Party is winning the elections in the UK from the last 10 to 15 years, and is serving member in this particular party. And not to miss that this party has given tremendous leaders of UK, like starting from Theresa May and Boris Johnson, of course, and furthermore, so the lot of good political leaders have served under the Conservative Party, and Rishi Sunak is again one of the gems of Conservative Party, which has recently become the Prime Minister. So speaking of his education, he studied at Winchester College and has studied philosophy, politics and economics at the Lincoln College from Oxford. He has done his MBA from Stanford University at the Fulbright Scholar. He was a Fulbright Scholar there, of course, and he has done his MBA from the Stanford University, and it was there that he met his future wife, Miss Akshata Murthy, who is the daughter of Narayan Murthy. I'm sure you all know of Narayan Murthy. He is the co-founder of Infosys. So not only this, of course, before he started his political career, he has even been served in many companies, in many business companies that he has served before entering in the political arena. Speaking of his early life, of course, you know, how is he related to India? Has he ever been related to India or not? So the answer is yes, because his grandfathers, grandfathers and even paternal and maternal side, they somewhere or the other, they had links in India. So he was actually born in Southampton, Hampshire, to the African born Hindu parents of Indian Punjabi descent, Mr. Yashveer and Usha Sunak. So ideally, his grandparents, they migrated from India to Eastern Africa in somewhere, in the early years. And then his parents along with his grandfather, then they moved to UK, they migrated to UK in 1960s. So somewhere in the 1960s, they moved to the UK. So which is where, then, of course, when they moved to UK, then Sunak, he was born in the UK itself, right? So if we talk about the grandparents of Mr. Sunak, so they belong from the Gujranwala, which is now in the current state of Pakistan. So they belong from Gujranwala. That was, of course, at that time it was British India when they moved from British India to Eastern Africa. So they somewhere they stated themselves in Kenya. So his father remained in Kenya and his mother is from the Tanzania. So they got married and then they moved to UK. So this is how we got the Indian linkage of Rishi Sunak, and somewhere or the other his roots belong from India. Nevertheless, even Rishi Sunak has many times mentioned in his press conferences and even his interviews that he has a strong wit for the Hinduism or Hindu religion, and he dedicatedly follow his religion. Nevertheless, of course, we know that many Christians and many people of British descent, they oppose this and they don't like it. But despite being from Britain in itself, of course, he is born and brought up in Britain, but he kept his roots somewhere in the Hinduism. And of course, there are many controversies going on right now, and even the opposition party, the Labour Party in the House of Commons, they are even against this decision, because they think that Rishi Sunak is not even a Britisher. So how can we even consider him, or how can we even accept him as the Prime Minister? But here the fact is that, do we really need to see their descent, or from which religion a person is coming from? Or are we actually going to judge him, or actually going to observe the person by his skills and not by the religion that he or she is coming from? Even recently, we got the news that Mallikarjun Kharge, again a pioneer contemporary political leader, has now been elected as the president of Indian National Congress. So he's the first non-Gandhi political person who has been elected as, or who's been chosen as, the president of the Indian National Congress. So now I think our political paradigms are changing, and they're slowly moving towards, or I may say they're moving away from the nepotism or the family hierarchies, or they're moving towards more of the skill dynamics rather than the family lineage or nepotism, or even the favoritism, crony culture that we have always seen in the past 2-3 decades. So definitely, these appointments have given us a good news that we may see a bright future in not only Indian politics but also in the geopolitics, right? So again, then finally in 2009, Mr. Sunak married Akshata Murthy, who's the daughter of the Indian billionaire N.R. Narayan Murthy. As I had discussed that of course, N.R. Narayan Murthy, he's the co-founder of Infosys. So after completing his MBA, he started working as an analyst for the investment bank in the Goldman Sachs. Of course, we know that Goldman Sachs is again a great company. It's MNC. It's Fortune Forbes company in the world, and he worked there as analyst between 2001 and 2004. Then he even worked for a hedge fund management firm, which is named as the Children's Investment Fund Management. So he worked for the hedge fund management, and even then later he resigned from the Children's Investment Fund Management, and he joined his colleagues from Goldman Sachs, and they worked in this hedge fund management company named Theleme Partners. So Theleme Partners is again the hedge fund management company where he started working. So soon after he left the Theleme Partners, then he finally decided to try his luck in the Britain politics, and he was selected as the Conservative candidate for the Richmond Yorks in October 2014, defeating the Wendy Morton, right? So he entered in 2014. So definitely from here you will get to know that it is not a very prolonged political career that he had. Of course, he had just joined in 2014, and he must have faced tough competition with many other political leaders who had been serving in the British politics for over more than 2 decades of their lives, or even in their political careers as well. So when you have to compete with the pioneer political leaders in a particular country, it actually gives a tougher fight. And definitely when you know that even during this of course, re-election or whatever you can call it, the reappointment of the Prime Minister for the third time in a row this year, Rishi Sunak was again, it was very difficult for him to come back, fight for this position again, and prove his worthiness during the time of economic recession and higher inflation in the UK. So everyone is keeping an eye on Rishi Sunak, that he is going to do something with the policies that is going to benefit and that is going to pull out the Britain from the current economic situations. So he started in 2014, and look where he has come now. In 2022, he has become the Prime Minister. So what I'm trying to tell you is, never ever give up on your dreams, because when you stop dreaming, you'll stop succeeding, you'll stop receiving what you deserve. So even like most recently, I was listening to one of the speeches of Shah Rukh Khan, when he said that just don't stop believing in yourself, because once you stop believing in yourself, you will lose what you actually deserve. So this is something which really hits my head hard. So next, Sunak was the head of the Black and Minority Ethnic Research Unit of the center-right think tank Policy Exchange. The same year he was in the 2014 in itself, he became the head of the Black and Minority Ethnic Research Unit, and even he gave several reports on the Black and Minority Ethnic research in the Britain, wherein he tried to resolve the problems faced by the black and minorities in the Britain. So then next, in 2015 general elections, he was elected as the Member of Parliament with a majority of 36.2% from the constituency, of course, wherein he was being served. Then next, finally from 2015 to 2017, he was the member of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee, which is again a good position, a good post that he was handling that time. Then in 2016, as you all know, that it was the time of Brexit. It was the time when UK was deciding to leave the European Union, and right from 2016, Sunak was in support of UK leaving the European Union and stand by its own, make its own fiscal and monetary policy, and follow the foreign trade policies by in itself. Right. So at the June 2016, when the referendum was happening, so then Sunak supported UK leaving the European Union, and even till the last it supported that yes, UK must stand in solidarity and leave the EU by in itself, of course, and UK must make its own policies. Then in 2017 general elections again, and this time Sunak won with an increased majority of 40.5%. However, the crisis started to happen somewhere around 2019. So, in 2019 elections, however, Sunak was re-elected as the member of parliament from the Conservative Party, and again in 2019 with the increased majority from the last time, right? But yes, from 2019 onwards, as we know that uh, COVID-19 pandemic hit the nation, and the UK was suffering hard from the food crisis, oil crisis. There were a lot of mismatch in the demand and supply in the UK, and at that time, not only the Sunak but even the entire ruling party of UK actually fought hard to actually sustain in that particular situation, which is more or less quite good to see that how all the political leaders, they have come together in this struggling situation, and they've helped each other in giving support, giving advices. There were a lot of research happened at that time, and how can we tackle this mismatch of demand and supply. During the Boris Johnson's timeline, so Sunak was appointed as the chief secretary to the treasury by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson himself, right? Then on 5th of July, when the COVID times were somewhere or the other, they were quite over, and then how these situations elated. So in firstly in July 2022, when Boris Johnson came out, or it was somewhere or the other, the situations strived and collated around Boris Johnson in a way that people have lost trust in the Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister, as some of his member of parliaments, they were involved in the serious misconducts. One of them is sexual harassment, and the other one is lobbying, which are the two serious misconducts in to be done by any parliamentarian. So which is why people have started losing their faith from the Prime Minister, that if his own MPs are doing this, how the citizens of Britain are being secured from all these acts. So this is what all the situations aggravated in a way that on July 7, 2022, Boris Johnson had to resign. After his resignation, of course, his resignation came as a big jolt to the entire politics. But after resignation, Liz Truss, she became the Prime Minister. So when even while there was a race after Boris Johnson resigning, so there was a race, for the new Prime Minister, wherein even Rishi Sunak was a most prominent name. But at that time, he didn't win the votes from the House of Commons, from the Conservative Party, and Liz Truss became the Prime Minister. But now, as the fate changed, Rishi Sunak has become the Prime Minister. So as you can see, these are the three prime ministers' face that has changed in a year. So on my right hand is Boris Johnson, and then on my back she is Liz Truss, and here we have the man of the hour, that is Rishi Sunak. So what happened, that Boris Johnson had to resign? Of course, Boris Johnson is known for his chivalrous and his young acts that he used to make, but in the politics, they don't actually work. In politics, you need to have that critical mindset. You must have that political perception, that how people are perceiving you, because you are the Prime Minister, and you just can't, behave like a cowboy in your own country. So which is why the Boris Johnson had to pay a price for all his deeds that he has been doing. So the most serious misconducts he has done, that is during the lockdowns, he threw up, party for all his peers in his and he threw a birthday party for himself, which kind of created discontentment among the people, that despite being the prime minister of country, and you knew that it is COVID pandemic going on, and you are celebrating and calling up your peers for your birthday bash. Then second one we had is the Owen Peterson, who is one of his member of parliament. He was involved in the lobbying. So by lobbying we mean that he was involved with many companies, giving them some favors, and involved in crony capitalism. So, and even he was suspended from the parliament for some time, but Boris Johnson resumed his time within a very short period of time. So again, this created mistrust among the member of parliaments quite a lot. And then lastly, when it hit the final stage, was when the Chris Pincher, again one of his member of parliament, he was involved in the sexual misconduct. He was involved in the sexual harassment case against a female. She filed a case against him. So this is where people, they finally lost faith in Boris Johnson, that he is not doing enough to stop all these misconducts happening in its own party. So these all reasons, they combined, had led to Boris Johnson resigning from its own party. So then next, now after Boris Johnson resigning, so then Liz Truss, she became the prime minister, and she is the shortest serving prime minister of UK. She just served for 45 days, and that too within 45 days. For 10 days it was a it was a mourning day. It was the people or the UK politics, they were mourning the demise of Queen Elizabeth, right? So she was the last prime minister to meet her, of course, because now Rishi Sunak has met the King Charles III, and he received all the welcomings from the King Charles III at the Buckingham Palace, and she is the last prime minister to receive such warm welcome from the Queen Elizabeth. So after she was appointed as the prime minister, 2 days later, Queen Elizabeth, she died, right? So what happened during her time? Her policies failed and even backfired and had led to her resignation. When we knew that your economy is facing the higher inflation and it is undergoing the recession, so what will you do? Definitely an ideal economist will say, at this point of time the money supply should be halted, and money supply should be locked in a way that people will invest more in the banks, and they give money to the banks. They just tied up their money in the banks, in the fixed deposits or in the long term deposits, so that they decrease their money supply. But it is in contrast with what we have seen in the Liz Truss policy. So what she has done, she actually announced a tax cut policy in the UK, which means that you are pushing, and you actually are saying, or you are performing, that people must spend in the economy. So this is, if you are you want people to spend more, you are cutting the taxes and you want people to spend more, ultimately it will inflate. So when you know that supply side is affected, and currently your demand is so high but the supply side is affected currently, at this point of time you need to control the money supply. But her tax cut move had increased the demand, but the supply side remained the same. So this had increased the inflation, the further inflation in the UK. So there was a double digit inflation of 12% during her time, which she failed to cut it down. The second bad move of her was announcing the government borrowings. So government borrowings means that in exchange of government securities and T-bills, she is going to borrow some money either from public or from other financial institutions, from the companies. So in short, you are trying to increase the public debt, which is going to socialize among the public, which ideally means that coming generations are going to pay for all the debts that you have paid, because ultimately if you are borrowing, you need to pay the interest also, and that public debt is going to again trickle down to the public in any which ways, in any way, in any form or the other. So it ideally means that the future generations are going to pay for the debt that you have you have today borrowed from either public or from any other institution. Thirdly, this entire policy framework, it has been analyzed that it is favorable for the richer section. See, ultimately tax cuts will benefit richers, and these riches will invest their money, or you can say, so these people, the richer section of the UK, they have money which they are going to give it on a debt, because they are running the companies, they are running the private institutions. So similarly they are going to give this money as a loan or as a borrowing to the government. So ultimately they are going to be benefited by two ways: one, tax cuts, and second, by the interest that they will receive from the government. So this ideally is not a very good policy, especially during the time of high inflations and recessions. I know that she was trying to increase the spendings, increase the government spendings, and even she wanted to plug in, she wanted to inject some money in the economy as per the ADAS theory, because she ultimately wanted the economy to grow. So on one hand she had growth strategy, and on the other hand she had some constraints such as high inflation. So when you know that the growth strategy is not working, so you must curb the inflation first, and then you think of the growth policies or the growth strategies to work, because this is how you can actually create a balance between the growth and the inflation. And even Rishi Sunak is one such leader who was never in favor of Liz Truss tax cut policy and the borrowings policy, and he has always triggered an alarm interest, of course, in the during the time of Liz Truss also, that this is not going to work, and this is exactly what happened. So this didn't work for her. And even, like, what triggered then further was her home secretary Suella Bravermans. She made a remark, because these, of course, till Diwali, it was supposedly to be done, that India and UK must sign the free trade agreement, but it is again somehow been delayed. So free trade agreement, according to Home Secretary, she mentioned that if this free trade agreement is finally being completed, then it will increase the Indian immigrants in the UK. So this remark, somewhere or the other, it goes in a negative sense for the Liz Truss, and this had even delayed the free trade agreement between the nations, which they are actually awaiting for a very long period of time. And even we are actually forcing in the geopolitics also that this bilateral agreement, bilateral arrangement between India and UK is not only going to give fruitful results to UK but to India as well. Of course, when you sign the free FTA, especially when you exited from the European Union, so all the free ports or free trade agreements the UK must sign with all the strategic countries in the world, right? And I think this is what the major reason even why the UK has decided to exit from EU, because it wanted its own fiscal, monetary, and even the foreign trade policy. And if you're not, ever since you had, you had exited from the European Union, you've not done anything significant to justify what you have done back in 2019, which is why even Boris Johnson is the held responsible, that if you had done this, then what is not that significantly, why are you not giving significantly, or why are you not justifying your own act by giving something to the UK citizens? So these are the prime reasons that why the two of the main conservative leaders have not proven their stand in the UK, of course, in the UK Parliament. And now we are expecting that the Rishi Sunak may prove to be a bit sensible in handling the higher inflation, the recessionary pressures, and give best gift to the UK citizens, especially when we know that he is going to face some of the racist remarks, and maybe even many Britain citizens are not even going to accept the fact that he is of Hindu descent and he follows the Hindu religion, while they want someone from the Christianity and someone white to hold this position. So especially at this current stake that he is currently handling, especially at this time, he needs to prove this that he is worth holding this position, and that he must not be judged because of his religion, of his color, and rather must be judged for his skills. So this is all for today. I am sure आप लोगों ने ऋषि सुनक and his life and his career के बारे में बहुत information अभी तक gain कर ली हैं. And again, like I had mentioned, this is important क्योंकि पहली बार कोई हिंदू एक यूके जैसी कंट्री में एक प्राइम मिनिस्टर बना है. ये डेफिनेटली इट्स अ मोमेंट ऑफ प्राइड फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस. एंड हाँ, इसमें लेकिन बहुत सारे कंट्रोवर्सीज ये हैं, बहुत सारे लिंक्डइन कमेंट्स भी मैं ये पढ़ रही थी, मैं सुन रही थी, दैट व्हाई नॉट इट इज हैपनिंग इन इंडिया. सो व्हाई नॉट पीपल ऑफ different descents and different religions are holding such big positions in India. So like I had mentioned before, अब time अलग है. Now people are proving their worth. They are coming from different backgrounds, holding the top positions, and definitely India में भी कुछ ऐसा आने वाले सालों में होगा कि कोई यंगेस्ट प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनेगा, कोई यंगेस्ट प्रेसिडेंट होगा, गवर्नर्स होंगे, एंड पीपल of the age of 40s, they might be attaining the top notch positions, the bureaucrat, diplomats positions in India. And again, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, INC ने अभी ये शुरुआत कर ली है, and they have actually given a chance to a non-Gandhi member to be elected as the president of the Congress party. So definitely आने वाले टाइम में हम और ऐसे फ्रेश फेसेस देखेंगे जो कि हमारी पॉलिटिक्स को एक बहुत ही नया रूप देगा. एंड with this I just want to give boost to all the people in the world जो लोग पॉलिटिक्स में एक्चुअली में आना चाहते हैं या जो सोचते हैं that they have that capability, they have that skill of leadership and they can they can move forward. Definitely ये आप लोगों के लिए है. this Rishi Sunak is one such ideal person. ये आपके लिए एक आइडियल होने चाहिए क्योंकि इन्होंने within a short span of time अपनी एक वर्थ को प्रूव किया है, एंड ही रीच्ड at a position which no one has ever dreamt of. किसी ने नहीं सोचा होगा कि यूके में कोई हिंदू डिसेंट का पर्सन कोई प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने. So thank you so much everyone. I hope you liked this session. If you liked it, don't forget to share it among your friends and just hit the bell icon. अगर अभी तक आप लोगों ने हमें सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो जल्दी से सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लाइक्स एंड शेयर कीजिए इस वीडियो को, सो दैट everyone gets to know कि ये हमारे लिए जो ये दिवाली आई है, ये एक बम्पर दिवाली आई है. So thank you so much everyone.